We're thrilled and honored to be here this morning with all of you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to be with us and to kick off our weekly series with Dr. Risa Ryger. Mayshad Choice is an enterprise of brands for women by women. We moderate, produce, and distribute a series of life-altering events, digital series, and soon-to-be-launched technology platform, enabling women to connect with each other and to the companies, causes, and institutions that support women's equity. Dr. Risa Ryger, welcome to our show.
Hi, Jen. I'm thrilled to be here with you this morning, and welcome everyone, those who were with us last week and those who are joining us this week.
Risa, so a lot's happened since we were together last Monday. Let's debrief and relax and take a moment to regroup together and be thankful for sharing this space with each other this morning.
I would love to do that, and what I would suggest is that for both you and I, because here we are and we want to bring our absolute best for everyone who joined us this morning. So maybe what we can do collectively is just take a moment, collectively, like literally get in our seats, connect with ourselves, and just take a moment and take a couple of breaths together. So shall we start there? Okay.
That sounds perfect.
All right, bring it in and let it out. Okay. Okay, one more. Okay, we're ready to go.
That's an amazing way to kick off a Monday morning together. Thank you, Risa. So, as we know, a lot's happened in the last week. We saw unemployment claims in the U.S. rise to over 3.25 million for a 1 week period. And we also saw the burgeoning numbers of coronaviruses in New York City, around the country, and around the world. So we've all individually and collectively have had a lot to process together in the last week. And practice and collectively process individually as well, as we have shifted now, all of us, to a remote work functioning space at home. Talk to us a bit about what you're seeing from your clients and from what you have experienced yourself, in the sense of how we're all kind of surviving and what can we do to thrive in this new normal.
Well, that's a great place for us to start, because we want to be setting ourselves up for success. Now, success doesn't necessarily mean one thing, but it's the success within ourselves, success with how we navigate this day, success with where we want to put our heads to be able to make it through the week. And each week is different. And one of the things that we know is that every single day is different. So one thing for us to keep in mind is that we cannot do it all. We just can't do it all, and we can't take it all in. And so what is it that we can, from the weekend, from what's happened over this past week, one suggestion would be, what is it that we can connect with that is useful for us? Because I think as we've gone through this past week, I don't know about you, but I sure have noticed that there's a massive amount of data, just massive. And there's just a point where it becomes a saturation level, and there's nothing else more that we can process. Even if we want to, we're at full saturation. I mean, even if you have a great sponge, there's only so much that it can hold. And so one thing to think about is, well, what is it that I've heard from the past week? What is it that's useful for me? Something that I might be able to do something about or use. What's a piece that is just important for me to know? I don't have to do anything about it, but just this is an important piece for me to know. And what is it that, if I keep holding on to it, is just going to overload me, overwhelm me, and really serve no constructive purpose for me at this time? It doesn't mean that we can't go back to it, or that it's not there, or that we can't access it, but that we don't need to, and we can't embrace it all at once.
Risa, talked together late last week around how exhausting the move to all digital can become. and now that digital is present for us, not just 24/7, but 24/7 plus 24/7 plus 24/7 plus 24/7, it does start to feel oversaturated. It starts to feel overwhelming, and just also physically and emotionally exhausting as well. And let's have a conversation around what that, for many of us, what could that feel like? And are there some tactics and some tips and some hints for us to be able to ensure that we're still balancing? And what now does balance mean in the world in which we're living?
That's a lot of questions in one, Jan. So, one of the things that I'm experiencing, and a lot of people are, is that when you've been used to working three-dimensionally, it's a whole other level to work on a two-dimensional basis. I mean, here we are, I'm looking at you, and we as human beings, we are built for connection. Our brains are social entities. We look for connection. We want connection. Even sometimes we need to take a pause from it, but basically, fundamentally, we look for connection. And one of the things I notice, and I don't know if anyone else has, is that I have a tendency when I'm online like this and I'm looking at you to lean forward. I have this tendency to want to lean forward. And what is that about? That's about wanting more connection. And so when we're going from the three-dimension to the two-dimension, and we've got a whole wealth of information that we're getting, including proximity from the other person and the kind of energy that shows up in a room that's just different on a screen, so that the inside of us, even if we're not aware of it consciously, the inside of us is looking for that. It's like inside of us, we've got, with our neurotransmitters, we want that uptick that we get from connection. And when we are functioning in this way, that's a little bit less than, we still want that uptick. So we're going forward. We're like opening our eyes more. We're gesturing more, whatever it is, because we want connection. So that's one thing. The other thing is that when you're meeting virtually, one of the ways that we have to connect is through eye contact. And so we don't have really an opportunity to look out the window, to do some other things, that we're full on. We're full on, and not only are we full on with our bodies, but we're also full on with our focus. When we're here virtually, we really don't have an opportunity to think about the grocery list that we need to figure out what else we need at what point, what we're running low on, and where we're going to find it. We don't have that opportunity. We're full on. And from one to the next, without getting up, without moving around, and having agendas that need to be followed, that it doesn't allow for a kind of a casual ease that we may be more used to.
Risa, one of the things that we also haven't touched upon yet is just the loss of the sense of touch. That as New Yorkers, when we meet and we greet each other, we see each other, we're very often likely to hug and to kiss and to hug, and we tend to be very touchy-feely. Oh, Neza just joined us. Hi, Neza.
Hi, Neza. Welcome.
How are you? So David is testing us, and we're preparing for the conversation.
No, we're on.
Are we?
Yes.
We're on right now,
you
Neza.
too.
Okay. I thought the conversation started at 11.
We're on at 10:30.
Okay, great. Amazing.
Well, welcome everyone. This is what a transition, honesty, And the best of intentions looks like right here before you now.
Perfect. So, Jan, I'll let you lead that.
Vanessa, we're talking about the loss of the sense of touch right now that we have in our interactions, and how it's really hard to sometimes stay connected and be connected digitally, but then particularly right now as we're all moving to things like Zoom and Skype and video chatting, and what we can do to just maintain that level of connection with each other virtually. But yet, one of the things we haven't been able to figure out yet as a collective, as a community, is how do we retain on some semblance that sense of touch? Mm-hmm. And Risa, I'll let you respond to that question.
Well, one of the ways that we do, I mean, certainly this whole, there's new language. There's new language in our emails. There's new language in our texts together. We call them V hugs or V kisses, these virtual hugs and these virtual kisses. And it's a sensory loss for us. It's a sensory loss. It's an emotional loss. And it's a really hard thing to combat because there is nothing like human touch. Certainly we address it, and we're going to be doing that again in our experiential exercise that we're going to be doing together later on in our live stream. But there's nothing that substitutes for that. We can think about what that's like for us, and we can use this as a moment of optimism of what that's going to be like to be able to have that in our lives once again.
And this is going to give us actually that sense of value of how lucky we were to be able to physically be together. And I think that's the positive side of it, is definitely during this time, there is nothing that can totally replace that physical touch. And Dr. Ryger, you'll every time give us insights on exercises that we can do to get as close as possible to an emotion that can help us go through these times. But we need to remember as well that when we will be back into being able to shake hands and kiss and have that physical touch, I think we need to value it even more than we were doing it.
Without a doubt. And even though this may sound pretty pedestrian, given what we're really longing for, if you can, and if it speaks to you, be a friend, be a partner to yourself that you can be. And so if that looks like getting your nicest lotion out and massaging your own feet, there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. Give to yourself. If you can give to yourself in ways that perhaps others have given to you through hugs and kisses, when you step out of the shower, if you want to, put lotion on, have human touch. And even if the human touch right now is your own, but don't devalue that, because it's coming from a good place inside of us.
I like that very much. I think it's a very good advice to also use this time to focus on ourselves and give that love to ourselves. And yes, coming from also European background in terms of education, we have been taught there to express that sensuality with ourselves, of having an Epicurean lifestyle, of taking the time to enjoy things, not in quantity, but in quality. And I think it takes us back to this philosophy of, yes, when you're putting lotion on your body, it's not just to have the effect of the cream, but it's that touch, and it's how you put the lotion that will make it work, with your brain and your touch. And if you give more attention to things, I think they work better than if we just do them without attention.
Neza, you are so spot on. And so what, in the world of meditation or of mindfulness, there's formal practice and there's informal practice. And so taking that time, paying attention, noticing, experiencing, that is informal practice. And that's something that we can bring into our lives and is only helpful to us. We have this illusion that if we're lotioning ourselves or pouring a cup of tea or taking a sip of tea or coffee, as you were just doing, that's a great time to think about figuring out all these other things. And if we take a moment and bring our focus there, that it steadies us. It takes our focus, which is fragmented sometimes, and just unites it. And it winds up helping us for whatever our next challenge is. Because one of the things, Jan was mentioning, from last week to this week, is that it's become clearer that we are not in a sprint, that we are experiencing a new reality. It may not be a reality forever, but it is a reality for now. And so our mindset of, and being the women that we are, we're in the car, we're like pedal to the metal, goes for, go forward, straight ahead, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, work, be on it. Even if we're being nice to us, but that's kind of an orientation. And the mind shift that's really required here is that we are not in a sprint. We are in a marathon. Sure. And so as being in a marathon, we need to pace ourselves.
And the patience.
Yes.
Is required. I was having a conversation earlier with my father, who's checking on me from Morocco, because as you might know, New York is really in the spotlight of the news all over the world. And so the cases are ramping up, the unemployment, all this is being related internationally. So people check on us here in New York from the international with a lot of fear. I feel that we are all in the same situation on a global level. We have to be quarantined, and our focus right now is just to be responsible and keep ourselves safe in a home. But then I told my dad in that conversation, I said, Dad, even if in the news they said that we could just come out in 1 week, I would still, because it took such an effort to make the shift for my team, for my kids, for the entire organization, to be at that level of quarantine. And I think that if there was just a news that, oh, you can come out, everything is safe, I would still take, a couple of weeks before going back there to see, is it a true news or not? And so, but it takes us back to the patience level. We need to be patient in those times, and we need to also show that patience towards what is coming up next. We need to be the ones that have that enough distance to be able to get back, but with a little bit more wisdom than just to rush out unconsciously. And so it takes back to what you're saying, using this time to be in a quiet mode where understanding that things will take time, and it's the marathon theory.
Yes, and when we think about it, we are taking time, and at the same time, if you take a minute and just think about, since we've been at home, what are the other jobs that we've taken on? What else are we doing? Are you now a short order cook? at home? Have you found that, you're going from one meal, depending on who's in your household, to prepping the next? And surprise, and then there's the next one after that. And then the dishes, and then the laundry, and everything else. What are the jobs that we have taken on full on, in addition to everything else that we've done before? And let's get some clarity on that. And how is that impacting us? Because this is part of the marathon of entrepreneurial women who are running their own businesses, women who lead teams, women who are in the workforce, women who are in the CEOs of their own homes, because they have a huge job. Women who are the CEOs of their homes have a huge job now. And so part of the question is, what else are you taking on, and how is that impacting your energy? So if anyone, please feel free to share in the chat, because there are things that we've never had to think about before.
So one follow-up question for you along the same line is, so we're homebound now until at least the new news is at least April 30th, if not longer. And you're absolutely right. We're in this for the long haul. This will be a marathon and a sprint. And so we're, I think, very dedicated now, thanks to your guidance and guidance, assistance, helping us understand more about the importance of self-care, even if it is massaging our own feet or massaging our own scalp or whatever that is. But we also may have other people in the home as well that we're also trying to balance everything from who uses what office for conference calls, to how do we share dinners and meals together, to how do we now spend social time together when, the ability to go outside may be limited for some of us. And so in the same way that we're now desire to practice more self-care, how can we also ensure that the others around us are also equally sharing in self-care for themselves, but then also taking care of us as a tribe under the same roof as well? So it doesn't feel necessarily that it's all the burden of one person to carry the load for everyone.
This is a time to come together as whatever your unit is, whether it's a unit of 1, 2, or more, and see and have a conversation about how we want to do this. There's not a right way of doing this, and there certainly isn't one way of doing this. As individuals, we have our own personalities. As couples, we have that interaction as a couple. And as families, we have a different set of dynamics that we deal with. And so to have a conversation about, we all can't do it all. We each can't do it all. So what does contributing look like? Who's going to take on what? And that these are important responsibilities. It's also a time when people can feel important and useful because they are contributing. No matter what age you are, that there's something that you can do of value. We all need purpose. We need to feel purpose. One thing, and for yourself and for others, if we think about, well, what is something that I can do every day that helps me feel like I've accomplished something, or that grounds me, that has a beginning and an end? And whether it's making your bed, and for me, I never knew that unloading the dishwasher is grounding, that I open something that's packed and that I can take it and put it into a place where I'm actually going to find it again, which is really key. And so that we feel that we can have some impact, and that we create certain rituals for ourselves. They don't have to be big and overly involved, but something that's grounding and anchoring. And in that way, We take care of ourselves. People take care of themselves also. They contribute, and we really develop a sense of collective where everyone has something of value.
You know, Risa, so many women in our community are households of one, or they're taking care of children or elderly family members. And, you know, if we don't already each individually know someone that's been impacted and affected by coronavirus, we will probably in the very, very near future. And so for those moments and times where we find ourselves most struggling, or those around us that we know that have been impacted significantly, are there ways in which we can provide comfort and support for them without it feeling too burdensome or overpowering for anyone involved?
Sure. One person who comes to mind right now, I don't know if you saw it, but on Hoda Kotb on the Today Show, she was interviewing Drew Brees, who's a quarterback of the Saints. And at the end, she was overwhelmed. I feel it just thinking about her. Anyway, so she was overwhelmed and she broke down in tears. And what happened was that she kept apologizing on the air, apologizing as if this was problematic. And as I was thinking about it, you know, one of the things that we say, the language that we use is they broke down in tears, right? So listen to our language, broke down in tears. Now, what does breaking down mean? Breaking down is a negative. Breaking down is falling apart. Breaking down, it means that, you know, if you're broken down, then you're kind of useless. But tears are not a bad place to be. Tears are not breaking down. Tears are about letting out and connecting inside, and that we all need those moments. So can we be vulnerable with someone? Can we show our vulnerability, and through that strength, show people that they can be vulnerable with us also? Again, that it's not going to last forever, that we can be there, that we can show up in that way for ourselves and for others. And that vulnerability is exactly, you know, how we feel sometimes. And paradoxically, it helps us to be even stronger if we're not fighting against that. And so we can have a joke. We can come with levity. We can have a whole host of ways of connecting that from literally from tears to laughter. And that it all has value at different times. And we need everything that we've got, and it's time to develop.
Dr. Ryger, is this a good time to reinvent ourselves? Is this a good time to get to know ourselves even better and to get to know our partners, our kids better? Because somehow in the other life, the life where we're out there the whole day with our respective life missions, sometimes we do miss on really getting to know even our own children. And so would you say that this is a good time to kind of reset all that, to re-explore, knowing better? And again, I'm just going to give an example. We might have known very well a child that was 9 years old in our life, our own child, and then what happened over the past 2 years when I was busy with my work, launching a new venture, and that child turned into a teenager, and the communication became more abrupt, and then you realize that maybe you don't know that evolving child anymore. So would you say that this is a good time to reset everything on that level?
It's an excellent time for that. I mean, look, Jan, I mentioned to Jan earlier, something that I would call, not glibly, not glibly at all, but in seriousness, the Corona conquer. And so with the Corona conquer, one of the things that we can do that's really within our control is to get to know the people around us. And it's not a formal process. It's not like, okay, now I'm going to sit down and interview you. It is really through ease of being together, of listening, of being available, that makes this time so important. I mean, I think that for if not all of us, for almost all of us, in a couple of years from now, we're going to think back to this time and how we all lived in this space together. That this is a unique moment in time from that regard. And it will be through, with kids, and certainly with kids who are becoming teenagers, that proximity counts. That proximity, just being there for them to share the thought that pops up in their minds at that point. All of a sudden, you'll wind up, the more that you're, there, and you'll wind up hearing things that you did not know. You'll wind up finding out things. And your children, your partners, your parents, your aunts and uncles, if you're, they'll wind up hearing things and getting to know you differently as well. It gives us this opportunity. This is the piece that we can take control of. This is the piece that we can actually take control of in our own homes, starting today, starting now.
I totally agree. And I think that if we don't take this time to take control, we'll never do it. If we don't take this time of self-quarantine, of true calmness around there, because we don't have a choice, to restructure ourselves, to restructure our couple, to restructure our family, to restructure our businesses, then thinking that it's going to happen when we're out there again is a lure. So, Dr. Ryger, thank you so much for your inspirational insight every week, and we will be here every Monday with you. Can you take us through the experiential exercise today?
Absolutely. There's one thing I just want to add. That happens, Neza. There's one thing I want to add, which is that when we're all together and we're having this opportunity to be together and get to know each other better, please do not take it as it's every moment of bliss. That it also means being together also means that people are at loose ends. People get irritated. People get agitated. And this is also part of the family experience and what part of this challenge is right now. And this opportunity is to be able to figure it out together when everyone isn't at their best. This is not an Instagram photo of families like the best dish you've had, right? The garnishes aren't all in place. So it's messy, it's funny, it's everything. So have that in mind also. So with that being said, okay, for those of you who were with us last week, we're ready to begin. And for those who are new, one of the most important pieces for us is our sense of touch. And right now, being able to touch others is really not available to us for the most part. However, there's something that I call holding hands. And we're going to go through that together. So everyone take a moment and think about someone whose hand you can hold, someone who's held your hand. We can think about it from when we were little and that feeling of comfort of having your hand held. You can think about who that person is for you. You can choose someone different. You can close your eyes and think of who that is. If there's no one who comes to mind, think of someone in a movie, create that person for you. It could be someone living or someone who has passed. Make that commitment and decide who that is for you. And now, pick up your hand that's your non-dominant hand. So I'm a righty, so I'm going to pick up my left hand. And with your right hand, get your right pointer out, starting from wrist, near on your pinky side. As we go up with our fingers, we're going to be tracing our hands. And as we go up, take a breath in. And on the way down, let it out. Take your breath in as you trace your next finger. Let it out. Take your breath in. Take your pacing. Let it out. In and let it out. And as you're thinking about it and doing this, come over your thumb and let it out. And on your way back the other way, going up your thumb and down, think about the sensation of that person putting their fingers into yours, being there to hold your hand, extending that comfort, being in connection deeply, because that person really wants to give you their comfort and their safety and the ease that you can feel together. As we come back down to our wrist again, we take a moment for an inhale and take this experience in, to remember it and have it with us. Let your exhale happen. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And thank you everyone for joining us, sharing this time, and creating our community here and now that we have for ourselves for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Risa.